I'm Logan Webb, and you're listening to TortureCast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the three-time world champion, San Francisco Giants. With hosts Chad King and Eric Nathanson. This is TortureCast.
It's Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, and this is episode 292 of the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, and I have a hypothetical for my co-host, Eric Nathanson. First of all, how are you?
I'm good. Now I'm curious, so bring it on.
So I'm going to get in a time machine right now, and I'm going to go visit you, because apparently I can also travel geographically as well through this time machine. And I'm going to knock on your door on July 18th of this year. Now, mind you, at the time, the Giants were 13 games above 500, only a game and a half out of the West lead behind the Dodgers, and a spot firmly secured at the top of the wild card race. And I came to you and said, hey, co-host buddy, podcast buddy, co-host, Eric Nathanson, by October, mid-October, no longer will Gabe Kapler be the manager. And in fact, Bob Melvin, the current manager for the star-studded San Diego Padres, will be the Giants manager. And then I just left. What would you think about that statement?
First of all, I'd go to the casino immediately. But I think you're crazy. I would think you're absolutely nuts. There's no way in hell in July that we thought the manager of the San Diego Padres would suddenly be the San Francisco Giants manager. Like, nobody saw that coming. You're totally right. I mean, Gabe, the steps that had to happen to have this take place, it's just kind of amazing it fell into place. So, yeah, I would have immediately gone to the casino to make a lot of money on Gabe Kapler's firing and Bob Melvin's hiring. And thank you for that, but there's no way I would have believed you. I would have been like, why am I making this bet? This is totally stupid. There's no way Bob Melvin's going to be the manager of the Giants. But hey, now it's October 25th, and here we are.
Oh, man, what a wild turn of events, right?
Wow.
Just at that time, we're talking after the All-Star break. The season's almost 2/3 up. Gabe Kapler and the Giants are humming at a good pace. They had just won 7 in a row on that date. Everything was looking pretty good for them. And obviously we know what happened. We've been over that. We're not going to beat the dead horse. But to have it happen, to lose the manager, and then to get the permission from the San Diego Padres, because Bob Melvin still had another year left on his contract, to interview with the Giants. And, we were texting back and forth, but, for the most part, right when I heard that they were going to get permission to speak with Bob Melvin, I was like, oh, he's going to be the next manager. He has been kind of a soft target for the Giants for years. I think just the timing never hooked up, right? He's a Bay Area guy, grew up in Palo Alto, went to high school there, went to Kenyatta College. That's where he was drafted out of. Played for the Giants for 3 years. And he stayed on the West Coast his entire career, basically, in his managerial career. So he's a Bay Area guy. He loves the Giants. He always has, and he always thought that maybe he could end up back here. And so it worked out for him. And I don't know. When you heard the news about them being interviewed or him getting the permission to interview with the Giants, did you also come to that kind of immediate thought?
Oh, absolutely. The moment I heard the Giants had been granted permission to talk to Bob Melvin, I said, oh, great, we have a manager. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You don't grant permission. The San Diego Padres are not going to grant permission to the San Francisco Giants to talk to their manager unless they're willing to let him go. Yeah. And the Giants are not going to ask the Padres for permission to talk to their manager unless they're already intent on hiring him. So the writing's just on the wall with that kind of a thing. It's just, one of those moments where you're like, okay, this is going to happen. Now, I have to harken back. I don't know. Social media wasn't around as much or at all back then. The internet was, not in its infancy, but it wasn't what it is now. Was this what happened when Bruce Bochy came to the Giants? Was this a similar process? Because again, Bruce Bochy was the manager of the San Diego Padres, and they granted him permission to talk to the San Francisco Giants, and bing, bang, boom, he became the manager of the Giants and won 3 titles. So, it makes me wonder if this is similar to what went down back then, and are we going to have a repeat? I mean, just in general, I'm happy about the hire. I like Bob Melvin. I think he's the perfect choice right now. I understand some people want to go younger. Some people want to get, a name out there that hasn't been there. But when you have everything, a clubhouse fall apart, like the Giants clubhouse fell apart last year, and you have ownership saying one thing and you have players doing a different thing, you need a guy to come in and steady the hand.
Right.
And as we go through his managerial history, Bob Melvin's that kind of guy. I mean, you said it. He's been all up and down the West Coast. I mean, how many teams has he managed for? Like 5 all West Coast teams? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
so I think it was
5
the
all
right
West
choice.
Coast.
I mean, do you agree with the choice, or would you rather have seen somebody like a Stephen Vogt or a Mark DeRosa or even a Joe Espada coming back around this time?
I'm happy with it. I really am. I would not have been disappointed in a Stephen Vogt, but at the same time, he doesn't have a track record, right? Bob Melvin does. He's been managing for 21 years or what have you. He started with the Mariners. He was with the Diamondbacks. Obviously, his longest tenure was with the A's, where he had a lot of success with not the best roster. And what I should say is the roster turnover, right? Once they start developing stars, it was fire sale. Then they developed stars, fire sale. And he kept bringing them to the playoffs most of those years. They were winning 96, 98 games. They were winning a couple rounds here and there, but we all know that the A's really have struggled in the playoffs historically. He has a relationship with Farhan Zaidi when he was the GM with the A's. He does know about analytics. He does follow analytics. But I think the strength that I see in this signing is, number one, and most importantly, is the managerial experience, right? 3,000 games managed. I mean, that's incredible. And he is slightly above 500. So he does have a winning record. Number two, he knows how to talk with the players. He's highly regarded by players. And in fact, this could be a really good signing in terms of attracting certain free agents. He also coached Ichiro Suzuki, whom Shohei, of course, idolized growing up. Not saying that that's a direct connection, but he has connections to Pan-Pacific baseball players, and there could be something there. He
Yoshi.
is known. Yeah, there you go. He has been known to have meetings with players. He's been known to throw down the gauntlet to players. He knows how to squash beefs in the clubhouse. But he also is a guy who knows how to make a gut call, not necessarily always with the analytics. He's definitely not a Gabe Kapler in that sense. And so I think this indicates a couple of things. Number one, AJ Preller, the GM with the Padres, and him, they have been having a lot of friction between them. Not all the details are known. No one's really disclosing much, but the reality is there was definitely some friction. And they think it had a lot to do with AJ wanting him to do certain things in certain ways that he disagreed with. And so I think this was just an easy way out for both parties. It was like, all right, I know it's a division rival, but we've done this before with Bruce Bochy, not AJ Preller specifically, but yeah, we'll let you, instead of firing you or letting you go out of your contract, we'll let you interview, and if it works out, it works out. And Bob Melvin, publicly today during his press conference thanked AJ for allowing him to speak with the Giants. But I think it also shows at least maybe that Farhan Zaidi will be okay with loosening up the reins a little bit. Now, he's still in charge of the players they acquire. Bob Melvin, I'm sure, will have say in that, but not necessarily command, right? But as far as an in-game, on-field manager, I'm hoping that this is an indication that Bob Melvin will have a little bit more leeway, and not just more leeway, but full control, sole control of not just the lineups from day to day, but obviously the in-game moves with the pen and the pinch hitters and all that stuff, and not just looking at the iPad, So I don't know. I think all of those things are positives. I'm excited about the signing. Do I think he's going to send the Giants to the World Series, AKA or a la Bruce Bochy did with his first year in the Rangers? No, because they don't have that same talent that the Rangers invested in. But
Right.
at the same time, I'm excited. I do think that this is a positive signing, and I think that he could do some good things here. But again, we thought we were going to be in the rebuilding years here for a couple years, and this is when the Giants should be getting back into things. But the reality is, this still may be kind of a rebuilding year with Bob Melvin. Not that they couldn't be 500 or a little bit better. I mean, they competed for the wild card most of all this season. It really took a late season collapse to fall out of the race. Maybe a Bob Melvin doesn't allow that to happen. I don't know.
That's the key. That's why I like this kind of a hire as well. You know, I'm looking through his managerial record. He was ejected 5 times last year. Gabe Kapler hasn't been ejected 5 times in his managerial life. Oh, I'm sorry. He's got 7. My bad. He only had 3 with the Giants in 4 years. So
Okay.
But you know, it's just one of those things where you feel like Bob's got your back a little better than Kapler. Like you said, you know, Kapler was a yes man. If he was told to do something, he's like, okay, that's the philosophy. Let's do it. And you know, I said it on our last show. I think Kapler got miscast. I don't think he's a manager. I think he's fine working in the player development side. He's fine in the scouting and those kinds of the stuff he did with the Dodgers. Totally worked. So he shouldn't necessarily be a manager. Now, Bob Melvin coming off, I mean, I'm looking at his statistics here. For some reason, he was only in Seattle for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then Arizona fired him in the middle of his 4th year in 2009. And I don't get why. I mean, they were still doing okay. But these Oakland stats are amazing. Yeah. I mean, he won 97. 4 years ago, he won 97 games with the Oakland Athletics. 4 years ago,
and it was back-to-back years too. And even in 2021, he won 86.
Yep. And I don't see why, if you see a guy do that on a shoestring budget of a team, imagine what he's going to do if a team is willing to spend money. Now, to be fair, we don't know if the Giants are actually going to spend money. We get a lot of lip service.
Right.
But as you said, Bob Melvin, you mean the guy who wins and players respect, is going to be the manager of the Giants? Maybe I'll consider going there now. That's really what the free agents are going to think, and you're right about that. That to me is one of the biggest parts of this, because we need to attract people somehow. The Giants need to attract people. You know, I'm not saying Ohtani, immediately after, we get Bob Melvin, but like I mentioned Yoshi there briefly. He's the Japanese pitcher that is out there that everybody wants. And apparently Melvin's got, like you said, a great relationship with Ichiro. So he's got a good connection to the Asian community. So in that respect, it's really good. But you're right. Bob Melvin's the good hire. I don't want some unproven guy, because I'm pretty sure Bob Melvin's going to tell Farhan no. Mm-hmm. Gabe never told him no. And I think Bob will. And that's what works with this. I mean, I didn't watch the press conference this morning. Full disclosure, I slept through it. But from what I hear, Farhan has also been extended now. So they're looking to keep this tandem together through at least 2026.
Yeah.
Now, I have to ask you, if this turns into a complete shit show, does Farhan lose his job at the end of the year still? Do you think that matters?
Great question. Yeah, Greg Johnson came out and said, he's been extended through 2026 to match Bob Melvin's contract. If the player development just isn't working out and the Giants fizzle out under 500 again this year, I just think they have to make a change, because clearly they're also not married. I mean, Farhan and Bob Melvin are not a package deal, kind of like Gabe and him were. I mean, this is a situation where I think it's easy for ownership to just do a clean cut, and Bob Melvin is going to be like, yeah, I'm fine with that, whatever. Get someone in here who could actually develop some talent or get some talent. Again, the thing that it's complicated by, as you may not have heard yet, Greg Johnson, when he was part of the interview today, he was asked about spending on players, and again, it was a bunch of mumbo jumbo, blah. Well, we want to compete, we want to win, but at the same time, we don't want to spend too much money, is basically what he said. He said they don't want to go above the luxury tax line, because when they go above the luxury tax line, it's really hard to break even. Now, first of all, I call bullshit on that. I really do.
Yeah.
I just call absolute BS on that. But, again, they don't have to show the books to the public, right? So we're We're just taking them at face value. And number two, it's like, well, because he brought up the example that just because you're spending doesn't mean you're going to win. And he is partially true. The top 3 payrolls this year did not make the playoffs, right? The Rangers are number 4, and obviously they made it. And the Padres are number 5, and they didn't make it. So, 4 out of the top 5 payrolls didn't even make the expanded playoff hunt. So he has a point there. But at the same time, if you take the averages across the league, yeah, of course, the more money you spend, the better your winning percentage is, right? And that's typically true year to year. But you always have your Tampa Bay Rays and, teams like that seem to overachieve, or your older, Oakland Athletics, same thing. That's just the model that Greg Johnson's talking about. And it's just frustrating. Do I think the Giants should be the number 1 spender every year? No, of course not. But to just go sit back in the middle of the pack at 15 or whatever they are, when they are the 5th most valuable Major League Baseball club, they're about to open up this Mission Rock project where the Giants are going to make money hand over fist. I mean, the Giants are in a very good financial situation. And to just hold on to those nickels and dimes, it's frustrating as a fan, right? Because he says, well, yeah, we want to win, but we just don't want to spend too much. That's kind of like the death nail right there. You just hear that from the owner or the majority shareholder, and you just kind of go, well, crap. Okay, they're not signing anyone big, I don't know. It's frustrating.
Well, it is, because you're right. It's the same kind of lip service we've been getting. And when your franchise is this valuable, and the Mission Rock, I mean, that's such a big deal. That's going to make them so much money that they don't have to lay out. It's not like you have to put a payroll of, 120 million out there to get the Mission Rock project to work. They've already laid out the money. Investments are there. It's all just going to come back at this point. So it is like free money. You're totally right about that. And so to hear them say things and want to act like this middle of the road ball club that doesn't have money to spend, it straight up pisses me off. I'm tired of our team, you know what I mean? I'm tired of watching our team act like a poverty franchise when they're literally living in the penthouse. And so I'm with you. To hear that kind of crap again, it just makes me irate. I am so not on board with Giants ownership right now. I am so not on board with Giants management right now. And when they keep saying things like that, all it does is keep telling me that I'm right. Because you're not going to see, you don't hear this from the teams that win. You don't hear the teams that win be like, you didn't hear the Texas Rangers when they hired Bochy say, well, we're going to make sure that we still use this system, and we only do this to make sure. No, they said, hey, we hired a guy and we want to win a World Series. And look, they have the opportunity to do that. But the Giants, no, the Giants want to act like they're a fucking poverty franchise and say, oh, we've got to string it along and keep our payroll at a certain point, which is just crap. You can tell this is when my ire comes up. It is just talking about how management is spending money and the things that Farhan is doing. I have no faith in ownership or Farhan. And my hope is Bob Melvin comes in and steadies the ship. Because if Bob can't steady the ship, like you said, it all gets blown up again. And who wants to go through that? Who wants to go through that over and over and over again? I'm so jealous of the Mets right now. I get that they didn't make the playoffs. I get that they had to trade Scherzer and Verlander. But they have an owner who's willing to do things. They have an owner who's willing to say, I want to win and I'm willing to spend money. Yes, he's had to do some mea culpas this year and make some trades and retool, but he's going to go at it again. They're going to be in the conversation again. But are the Giants going to be in the conversation again? We have to wait and see. And I'm tired of waiting and seeing,
Yeah, Steve Cohen's, deals didn't work out on the field, but at the same time, he's not the one publicly saying, well, we don't want to spend too much money.
Right. He's saying, let's go out and give it a shot.
Yeah.
Right. It makes me think that Charles Johnson, and to a lesser extent, some of the other owners just aren't even baseball fans. Like, what are we even doing here? Like, do you feel like you're in charge of a public trust for people? Or do you feel like that you're holding on to a money-making enterprise? And he feels like it's a money-making enterprise.
Yeah, the telltale sign is right when he said, if we go over the luxury tax, it's hard to break even. Well, right there tells you
Bull.
winning is not the first priority. Money making
Exactly.
is. Because if winning was priority number one and I was a multi-billionaire, and let's say it's accurate, if the Giants can barely break even if they go over the luxury tax. Well, guess what? Okay, you didn't make a ton of money just on the Giants this year, but the fact that the Giants mission project is about to open, and the fact that the valuation for the club, just like when you buy a house with its investment value, right, its equity, is going up ridiculous amounts every single year. You are making money every year. Yes, on paper, but you are making money every year. And if you can invest that back into the team and the payroll, and yeah, okay, your revenue is breaking even every year, but your investment is not. Your investment is skyrocketing, and you're putting a better product on the field, which goes to your first point about winning. I just, that's infuriating to me, Eric. I mean, that's absolutely infuriating. It tells you, number one, he cares about being in the black first. That's it. And if they win, it's a good side effect. It's a good secondary objective. Oh, just ticks me off.
It's frustrating. Right.
Yeah, I just want to be put in their shoes for, a couple of years. Yeah, I'd love billions of dollars. But what I mean is, to own a team and run it with the passion that you have as a fan and caring about the performance on the field and not just operating, well, how close are we to the luxury tax? What are the numbers this month? Are we in the black? How are concessions? What's the payroll? It's like, no, God, no. That's not going to make a difference in your net worth at the end of when you freaking die of a heart attack at 75 or whatever age. It's like, come on. Freaking
Right.
A. You have $28 billion or $28.5 billion when you kick the bucket. Who gives a shit? Well, they do.
You can't take it with
he
you.
Does.
Yep. You
I know.
can't take
Anyway.
it with you, folks.
All right, enough of that.
Enjoy life now. Okay. Well, I wanted to bring this back around to Melvin. Okay.
Yeah,
so we can
that's
wrap
what I
up
was going
the
to say.
Melvin
Back to
talk.
Melvin.
Well, okay. So is Melvin the guy to stand up to Farhan? We both said we're happy with this hire. Here's a better thought. Is this hire going to work out? Do you think the Giants, I'll answer first, but do you think that this will actually work out for the Giants and they will be a better team going forward because of Bob Melvin? And my answer is no. I am very happy with Bob Melvin as a hire, and I think he's good, and I think he will buck against Farhan. But until ownership and management changes the way they view things, I don't think it's going to make a difference. But I love the hire. But do you think he can turn it around and be enough, or do you think that the problem goes higher?
I want to say because the Giants interviewed / stole the San Diego Padres ex-catcher as a manager, that yes, it will work out just like it did last time they did this.
I mean, the similarities are crazy. Catcher,
I know, right?
You know what I mean? Except Bob played for the Giants and Bochy played for the Padres.
Exactly. That is the one difference there. Bochy did not play for the Giants. But yeah, in reality, no matter how much I hope that happens, I do think that Bob Melvin will be able to, if he had this year's team, I believe the Giants might have just snuck into the playoffs with Bob managing it, because I do think that maybe his managerial experience and player handling may have prevented the collapse at the end. There's no way to know that. If you want to argue me, that's anyone listening to this podcast, if they're arguing, they're yelling in their car right now, that's fine. I have no way to prove that, and you don't have any way to prove otherwise either. That's just my assumption. So if it's something like that, maybe he can, get them into the playoffs and do what the Arizona Diamondbacks did this year. I mean, remember the Diamondbacks only finished 5 games ahead of the Giants. And here they are in the World Series. So, I mean, the Giants won 88 in 2014 and won the World Series. The Cardinals won 84 in 2011. They won the World Series. So it can happen. Now, with his hands tied, though, because he doesn't have much say, if any, in player acquisition, then he's gonna have to manage with a mediocre roster, and so that's where the challenge is going to come from. And this is the odd thing about it. A lot of the naysayers I've been reading on social media today point to the fact that Bob Melvin, despite his lengthy managerial career, has no pennants and no World Series, and that's a huge black mark. Number two, he managed a superstar team this year, and couldn't get them into the playoffs. And so if he can't manage an all-star team to the playoffs, how is he going to manage a crappy Giants team to the playoffs? Well, I mean, there's a couple things I'd have to say about that. Number one, he's never made the World Series, but he has taken teams to the playoffs 8 times in his 20 years. And for many of those years, he was dealing with really crappy teams with the Diamondbacks and with the A's in between their fire sales. With the Padres, however, he did have an all-star cast, and he did defeat the Dodgers in 2022, remember, and did make it to the championship series. He just happened to lose against the Braves. So, I mean, that happens. I'm sorry, Phillies. Sorry. Yeah, they played the Astros, Braves the year before. He lost to the Phillies. And that happens, right? As we've seen this year, when an 84-win team beats the entire NL field, right? And we got the 100-win Braves and Dodgers getting knocked out. So you can't place that on a manager all the time. That's just not the case. No. Well, maybe Dave Roberts because of his futility in the playoffs. But anyway, I would say that those aren't necessarily detriments to his managerial record. I point to what people say about him in terms of his character, how he manages a clubhouse, how he uses analytics and how he doesn't exclusively rely upon them, how he does use his gut a little bit. All of those intangibles, I think those all fit perfectly into what I think a lot of Giants fans would want to see right now. But more to your question, unfortunately, my gut says, it's not going to make a huge difference over a Gabe Kapler, and I think they're going to be struggling the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's frustrating because Melvin hasn't had a losing season since 2017.
Yeah.
So everybody's calling for this guy's head. They're like, he couldn't bring these superstars to the playoffs. Still had a winning record. Had a winning record last year in San Diego. His last 4 years in Oakland of all places, he had a winning record and won 97 games twice. So, I mean, if that's not a positive arrow, I don't know what is. I don't know what people are looking for at this point.
I don't know what they want. I cannot imagine who they want. And if they say something like, I definitely wanted Stephen Vogt or just another new guy, it's like, well, okay, but then they're unproven. So I can just point to the same exact thing. They haven't won a World Series either. It's like,
and this is going to be a debate that goes on for the rest of time, and that's what's going to make it fun. Is we're going to see what happens this year. I'm glad that they got him in place today.
Yes.
So this offseason, the Kapler hiring, I don't know if you remember, happened in November sometime.
It was November of 2019.
And it broke like late in the day. I remember that because I just for some reason I always remember where I was when Kapler got hired. Because we were not really fans of that hire. We didn't like the past stuff, and we didn't like what had happened in Philly. No. And then it proved to be true. It absolutely proved to be true. Now, Melvin, I don't have these same trepidations. So I'm happy the Giants made this. They made the right decision. I just hope it's for the right reasons.
Yeah. No, it's good. So, he becomes the 39th manager in franchise history and the 14th in San Francisco history. So, again, that's not a lot of turnover. Kapler was one of the rare short ones, and obviously the first one fired since 1984. So he's also, Alan Dirks was the only other person to manage both the A's and the Giants. He'll be the second person to do that, which is kind of cool. And like we mentioned, all 5 teams he's managed were all on the West Coast, 3 of them being in the NL West, the other 2 being in the AL West with the A's and the Mariners. So, Bay Area kid, West Coast boy, he loves it here. So very comfortable in Giant skin. And I grew up, that was like prime teenage years, Eric. 1985, 86, 87, right, was when he was on the team. Or was it 86, 87, 88? I think maybe it was 86 or 88. Anyway, that's when I was like 13, 14, 15 years old, right? When my fandom for the Giants was just getting to that all-time high as a teenager. Will Clark being my favorite, player. All of those things were developing at that time. And so Bob Melvin, even though he was the backup catcher most of the time, I absolutely remember him. Like, he is just such a memory to me as a player, as a Giants fan, which I think a lot of the younger, generation, they just went, oh, he played for the Giants? Oh, I didn't know that, right? They don't have that same connection. And so, I absolutely remember that. Now, I mean, he's not like your hashtag Giants forever because he's not like quite on the level of a Robbie Thompson or something like that. But he was part of part of that team in '87 that went to the playoffs, and then ultimately lost to the Cardinals. That year. So anyway, a lot of good memories from him. Glad he's with the team, and I think he's going to do great things as a manager. It's just, again, his hands are going to be somewhat tied. So we'll talk about all that as the offseason develops and getting into spring training and how we think they're going to do this year. But
we'll see with how
Bob
the hot
Melvin.
stove. Yeah, we'll see how the hot stove shakes out. We'll definitely be getting back together to talk about when some big signings happen.
All right, so we last talked about the playoffs, and of course the championship series were set, and we kind of complained that most of the games and series were kind of boring with some sweeps and near sweeps. Boy, Eric, we got treated to 2 Game 7s. That was great, wasn't it?
That was awesome. The LCS has saved these playoffs because, like you said, the first 2 rounds were lame as hell.
God, it was mind-numbing, right? And even these games the series started out that way. You had Texas and Philly both jumping out to 2-0 leads, and you're like, oh no, is this going to happen again? But it did not. The Texas-Houston series was strange. Obviously, it was Dusty versus, Bochy, and we had a lot of those connections there. Texas goes out and takes the first 2 from Houston in Houston. And they had won their first, 7 games in a row in the postseason. And you're like, man, they are just on a roll. And then Houston takes one. You're like, okay, well, they were going to win. Houston's a good team. And then they win the second one in Texas. And then they win the third one in Texas with that Jose Altuve 3-run bomb in the 8th inning or whatever it was.
I thought the series was over.
Yeah. Then I was like, I can't believe this. The road team has won every game, but Houston has all the momentum in the world. And now they're going back to Houston, right? Like, okay, so Houston has this series. I was kind of sad because, again, we talked about this before. I love Dusty. He got his World Series ring last year. So that's it. No more for the Astros. I don't like those guys. They don't need any more,
Right.
In a weird way, I kind of want Bochy to win it just to kind of be like F you to the Giants, right? You maybe they pushed him out. Maybe they didn't. There's still a lot of uncertainty about that. We all have our theories, but let's just say that he was kind of gently pushed out and he mutually agreed to not be in that situation anymore. And here he is with a new team and he goes to the World Series in his first try. There was something about that I thought was very cathartic, but I didn't think it was going to happen. And then indeed that pattern of the road team winning every game held true for the entire series. What? How did the road game win all 7 games? I don't get it. The road team.
Second time in history in a 7-game series.
I don't get it, man. This is weird.
Do you remember the first time? Do you remember the first time it happened?
I don't.
You watched it. It was the World Series 4 years ago when Washington beat Houston. The road team won every game in that series.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I vaguely recall that.
So Houston has now twice lost the series when they had home field advantage by losing every home game, which honestly is kind of hysterical, if you ask me. And kind
it
of a
is.
jab.
Yeah,
but I'm with you. I
Minute
thought
Maid.
it was over.
Yeah.
I thought it was over. When Altuve hit that homer, that Game 5 was a great game. And the Rangers seemed totally in control. And then Altuve comes up and hits that homer, and it was like such a gut punch for everybody. It's like, oh, crap, it's the Astros again. And I don't know what Bochy did. I don't know what – I heard the guys talking about how on their team text thread, they just kind of were saying, we need to get past this game. Fuck this. We're done. We need to get past this. Let's just go to Houston and kick ass. And they did. I mean, Game 7 was obviously a laugher, and in Game 6, they put their foot on the gas early, and they said, we're here. We're not going anywhere. I love the way this Rangers team plays. I really, really do. And Bruce Bochy's probably the reason for that. They seem to love him.
Oh my God, dude. All of those interviews, I watched for 45 minutes, all of the player interviews, every single one when they asked him, hey, how about Bochy? What does he bring to this team? The universal answer, Eric, and I know you heard this, and this was the same with the Giants, was that he just is steady. He's calm. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. He's a calming presence. Especially think of the way Texas ended the year, right? they went on this flurry because they had hit some skids and fell out of the West in the wild card. And in fact, they might not have even were on the trajectory to make the playoffs. They were kind of collapsing almost as much as the Giants were. And then they were able to turn it on. They won like 7 in a row, got the West lead back. We're heading into that last series against the Mariners, and then they just got blanked, and then they got blanked, and the Astros swept their series. They tie at the end of the year. Astros gets the tiebreaker, and suddenly they're on the road in the wild card, right? And they're like, it was a gut punch. It was a gut punch. This team is really streaky, but through all that, Bruce Bochy was like, all right, it's what we got to do. Let's just go out and do it. Like he never got upset. He never got too happy. And that's what we always heard and saw here. And that's a really unifying, calming presence to these young players. And to see it just reverberate through the clubhouse with every player saying that just shows you how much of an impact a manager really can have on a club.
Yeah, and how the club goes about its business. Perfect example, Evan Carter. Evan Carter came to the big leagues as a rookie this year. The guy's only been in the big leagues for a month. Mm-hmm. He comes to the big leagues, and Bruce Bochy says, you are going to be out there every day. Now, you call up Helio Ramos on the Giants, and the Giants are like, we're going to play you here. We're going to jerk you around there. We're going to throw you there. We're going to do this. Such a big difference. Because Bochy just said to the kid, much like Leo DeRocher once said to Willie Mays, kid, you're my player. You're going to be out there. Yep. So, yeah. So he, I love that aspect of it. And that just shows the calming presence. It just shows how well Bochy can handle that. So I'm proud of Bochy. I'm happy for Bochy.
No, I am too.
It's really cool.
And he's got a lot of firsts. He becomes the first manager to take 3 teams to the World Series. So he's the first, man to do that. He's also 6-0 in winner-take-all games. That's pretty awesome. And then now, of course, he's got 13 wins in elimination games. A lot of those with the Giants. I mean, they had 6 in 2012 alone with the Giants. So that was insane.
But 2012 is the perfect example of why he was the guy to steady this ship. Look at what they did on the road this year. That's exactly what they did in 2012. Down 0-2 to Cincinnati, rip off 3 straight wins. Down 3-1 to St. Louis, rip off 3 straight wins. That's what Texas has been doing. I mean, the sweep of the Rays was just nothing. And then I can't even remember who they beat in the second round at this point.
Baltimore.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They totally overpowered Baltimore. It was like the 2 up-and-comers, and Texas was like, yeah, you're not ready yet. Yeah. So I give Bochy a lot of credit for that stuff. I'm jealous, I'm totally jealous. It's like, bitter Giants fan on Twitter. He keeps talking about, that's our father, and that's how it feels. It's like our divorced father is doing well with his new family. And, it's got mixed emotions. I want to see him happy, and I want to see them all happy. Yep. But also, it's not my family anymore, man. What the hell?
I know, right? It's weird.
It's that mixed bag.
It's a very strange feeling. And to think that the Rangers are the team the Giants won their first World Series against, right? I mean, it's kind of full circle with that. It's very, very odd.
He will be the first manager ever to win a World Series with a team that he beat in the World Series, and to be the first manager to win the first World Series of a franchise after he denied them in their first ever World Series appearance.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's a mouthful. It's a mouthful, but yeah.
Oh man. Well, on the other side, in the senior circuit, the Arizona Diamondbacks, with their whopping 84 wins, only 5 ahead of the Giants, managed to make it through the gauntlet of the National League. They were the last National League team in as the number 6 seed, and they were able to do it, man. They were 5-0 in the first 2 series. And then they round up against the buzzsaw of the Phillies, who were the favorites. And Phillies went up 2-0 in that series, and it didn't look good for them. They went back to Philly down 3-2 because they took 2 of 3 in Arizona. It was like, all right, well, now Arizona has to win 2 on the road. Good luck with that at Citizens Bank Park. They did it. Now, not in the same fashion Texas did. But, man, that team, and it was very apparent, especially in that last series against the Giants, where they lost 3 out of 4, their athleticism is so pronounced over the Giants and certainly over the Phillies. just the speed of the outfield and the speed and the disruption on the base paths. You know, it was really, really cool to see. I mean, Arizona wasn't like launching bombs out of the yard. Everything was a dink and a steal, a dink and a score, a walk and a steal, a dink and a score, right? A little bit more of that old school, faster kind of St. Louis Cardinals from the 80s baseball. And I love to see it because they went up against the mashing Phillies. And they held the big four there, you know, Harper and Castellanos and Schwarber and the other guy. They were 1 for 20. Yeah, Trey Turner, 1 for 22 in Game 6 and 7 in Philly. 1 for 22. I mean, they just shut the big boys down. And so Arizona is going to the series for the first time since they won it in 2001. That was the Luis Gonzalez off of Mariano Rivera special, which was actually pretty cool at the time. And what's really weird about this is now it is a guarantee that either Bruce Bochy or Madison Bumgarner will be getting a World Series ring. Is that odd or what?
Oh my God, it's weird to think that Bum could win a ring with Arizona. Like, where would he put it? Like,
no, he's not the type of guy who's gonna wear that proudly, obviously. But
especially because he got cut by the team during the season. I mean, think about that. The Diamondbacks were like, "Oh, we've got something good here. Sorry, Madison, you gotta go."
Yeah.
I mean, it's still
shocking. Still shocking that. I mean, it wasn't shocking because his performance. It was just shocking that just happened overall. And reportedly, he did text Bruce Bochy before Game 7 and said he was available to pitch if he needed him. So I thought that was cute. That was good.
I'll say this: the Arizona Philly series, going into it, I was like, this series is going to be great, and it was. It really was. You mentioned. I hope Farhan is watching the Arizona Diamondbacks and kicking himself that that's not the team he put together. Because you're not kidding. The speed in the outfield is literally unbelievable. Alek Thomas can run down anything. You put Alek Thomas in Yosemite, he'll still run down a baseball. It's just unbelievable how much ground that guy's covered.
I don't know. Plus, we had Jock Peterson. He wasn't that bad in the outfield.
Pillsbury Doughboy. The Diamondbacks stole 8 bases over the last 2 games, 4 in each game. They only stole 1 over the first 5 games. So, again, that's an adjustment that was made.
It's an adjustment,
and
absolutely.
Right. Torey Lovello gets a ton of credit for the way he has guided this team. You know, you mentioned the fact that the big batters for the Phillies, they didn't do well in the last 2 games of the series. Arizona's pitching was phenomenal. Aside from Sal Frank just walking everybody, I mean, Kevin Ginkel would come in and shut it down. Brandon Pfaadt stepped up in a huge spot yesterday when the bases were loaded for the Phillies in I think it was the 4th inning. You know, these guys were put into the positions to succeed, and they did. And it's really impressive to watch the Diamondbacks. And I'm going to personally say, since I've watched probably 100 Diamondbacks games this year, I'm pulling for them. I like this team. They're a lot of fun. The things that you mentioned are exactly what made me kind of enjoy watching this team this year. They can cover ground. They know how to – they take good at bats. That's another thing. They don't just sit there and guess and say, oh, it's 3-1. I'm going to gear up for a fastball and then take a changeup right over the middle of the plate. Or it's 0-2. I know he's going to throw the curveball, and bam, fastball down the middle. Mike Yastrzemski sits down. You know, it's not the same thing. They are really showing that it doesn't matter if you have 84 wins or 97 wins. If you know how to play smart baseball in close competitive games, you're going to win. And that's what they've been doing. And I think they're a lot of fun. I mean, I picked the Phillies to win this round, but that was just based on experience. You know, the fact that Arizona did it is just impressive.
What is crazy is all 3 of us chose Texas. You went with Philly. Willie and I went with Arizona. But, I mean, they both went to Game 7s. I mean, you know, whatever. It was a coin flip, basically. It's like, you know, it easily could have been, you know, Philly and Houston. So it's just the way that the chips fell in this series. And, you know, by the way, I just wanted to ask you this kind of funny questions. Well, I'll get to that in a second. I will say that when your team doesn't make the playoffs, sometimes I put value in parity in Major League Baseball or other sports, whether it be NFL or NBA. If my team doesn't make it, I don't want the regulars to make it. And I'd like to see some new blood in there, right? Like, it's good to see some of that parity. And this is exactly that parity that is coming through with the expanded playoff system, because Arizona would not have been in with the older system, right? They were the number 6 seed going in. So they're in with 84 wins, and then Texas was the number 5 seed. But, in reality, they had the same record as Houston. They just lost via the tiebreaker. But they went in as the number 5 seed. So you have a wild card versus wild card once again. Arizona last won the World Series, and they're only won in 2001. And, of course, Texas has never won the World Series. So, and this is going to be their third chance, being 2010, 2011, and now this year. So I'm all for that. To me, it's better than, I don't have to say the Dodgers. That's a given. But even like, the Yankees or the Braves or, even the Phillies, some of these teams that you kind of expect to be in the mix all the time. And now Houston for sure. My God, they were like such a horrible team for so long. And this was their 6th straight championship series, Eric. That's crazy. That a team can make it 6 straight years. And it's not just making the playoffs, because that's the easy part, really. It's making it through the 1 or 2 levels of the playoffs. And so they've been able to do that 6 years in a row. Pretty incredible. But I like the parity, and so that begs the question. I've seen some, people that are a little uptight on social media talking about how this new expanded playoff system is broke and it's a joke because these teams don't deserve it. And I'm like, all right.
Nate Silver. Did you see the tweet going around with Nate Silver yesterday?
No, I don't think I did.
Nate Silver of 538 fame, Mr.
Yeah.
I can predict the presidential election, and then I didn't. This is Nate Silver yesterday. This is the least compelling World Series matchup in a long time, maybe ever. MLB made a lot of great and overdue changes this season, but it's time to contract the playoffs and give the regular season more meaning. Did this guy even watch the fucking LCS? These were some of the best 7-game series I've seen. Like, who gives a shit if the team has New York, Los Angeles, or Atlanta across their chest? As long as it's exciting baseball, that's all we care about. And to have 2 teams like this who have shown that they can play tight, competitive games, that's all we can ask for. It's new blood. I'm with you. There was another tweet I retweeted from a kid I really respect, and he's right. When did baseball go from, oh, cool, the underdog won, to the postseason is flawed and fraudulent and I don't like it? When did that happen? When did we stop rooting for the underdogs? I'm with you. I love this. We're going to have a team who either wins it for the first time or a team who only wins it for the second time in their 26th year of existence. Mm-hmm. That's fun stuff. I don't understand how people don't see that as enjoyable. I'm with you. I love this. I think it's great. I don't give a shit if Fox is going to have horrible ratings. I don't work for Fox. I'm not a shareholder. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to watch the games, and you're going to watch the games, and the majority of the people listening to this will probably watch the games too. So forget all that outside noise. Just enjoy the good baseball, because I'm with you. This is great. Rangers, Diamondbacks, that's cool. Let's get some new blood in there, and we finally do. Yeah. As soon as the Astros got eliminated, I was like, all right, great. I don't care if the Phillies win. I don't care if the D-backs win. As long as it's not the Astros again this year in the World Series, I'm happy. And it's not even for hatred. It's just I'm tired of the same team,
Yeah, it's interesting because, if you look at all 4 major sports, even though that baseball did expand to 12 teams making the playoffs, it is still the fewest numbers of teams making the playoffs out of any of the 4 major sports. So you can still argue that baseball still is the hardest sport to make the playoffs in. Look, I think a lot of these impressions from people are coming from butthurt Braves, Orioles, Dodgers, right? Those fans, because their teams were the best and they got knocked out real quick. Where, obviously for us, we saw, the Giants make it as, the last seed in 2014 with 88 wins to win it all. Cardinals fans saw it with 84 wins in 2011. So, look, the expanded playoffs, they added 2 more teams last year, and here we are with Arizona making it. They wouldn't have made it otherwise. I get it. But at the same time, it really does expand the playoffs. It gives fans more to cheer about near the end of the season. And it avoids the problem that we had in 1993, which is why realignment and expansion happened in 1994, even though that was a strike year, so really not till 95, when the Giants won 103 games and weren't even in the playoffs. I mean, that was just a joke. That was an absolute joke. And so in 94, they went to 3 divisions instead of 2, and then added the wild card. And so you had 10 teams making the playoffs. And it was like that all the way up and through, with some tweaks here and there, until they most recently expanded it to 12. But way back in the day, in that 1993, where the Giants, didn't make it, it was 4 teams, Eric, 4 out of 26. So it was really tough to make the playoffs. The problem with that is that you had some really good teams that didn't make it. The Giants had 6 more wins than the Philadelphia Phillies that year. But the Phillies qualified because they won the East. So they had to have a solution for that. And this is what's happened. And I've been all for it. And yes, if the Giants turn into the Dodgers, first of all, I'd love it if they could win 100 games every year. But if the Giants, look what they did in 2021. They won 107 games. They got knocked out in the first round, right? In the division series. Yes, to the Dodgers. But was I sitting there complaining about it, going, well, why did this other team that has less wins make it further than the Giants? No, I didn't care.
Right. They lost when it mattered.
They know, right? They all have the format. They all agreed to it. All the owners, everyone voted on it. It's all agreed to. So anyway, for people out there who think it's expanded too much, okay, fine. I'm not saying you don't have an argument. Maybe they could contract at 1 or 2 teams, but the reality is everyone's agreed to it. And when you allow parity like this, I think it's a good thing. If anything, it wouldn't be contraction of the playoff teams. It would be expansion of the number of games in each round, to buffer a little bit more for that, maybe. But, at least it's not a one game situation anymore. At least it's 3 games, right? So
that's the thing is they've already made such adjustments with the 3-game series, We've had 5-game series in baseball. Yes, you can complain about the DS being 5 games, but the LCS was 5 games from the moment it started until 1986 or 1985. I don't remember which year, because when the Cubs lost to the Padres in the 84 LCS, it was a 5-game series.
It was a 5-game series.
It was not a 7-game series. So, there's always going to be these tweaks, and I'm with you. I'd rather have this kind of stuff. Yes, the regular season matters a whole lot. It does. But you need to play baseball the way winning baseball at the right time. It's that way with any sport. Yeah. But like you said, it's not as watered down. There's not 16 teams. We don't have 4 rounds of 7 games each like they do in basketball. It takes 2 months for the basketball playoffs. And even then, generally speaking, the best teams end up at the end. So if the best teams can make it through the gauntlet in other sports, why can't the best teams make it through the gauntlet in baseball? The answer is they can. They're just not doing it usually. And that's not a fault of scheduling. That's not a fault of the way it all shook out. It's showing up at the right time. And so, people like Nate Silver can get bent, because these are some of the most fun teams I've seen in years. Yeah. And, this is the Major League Baseball Players Association Dream World Series. They are showing the players that it doesn't matter who you go play for. You can still make it. And, people can have a problem with it, but that's fine. Then they can also go cheer for the Cowboys and the Lakers. So, I don't really head to stalking them.
No, it's true. The only point that maybe Nate Silver and others that do have is, the ratings aren't going to be great. But that's not my concern. It's just not my concern at all.
They're not gonna stop playing the World Series because the ratings suck this year. It'll be back next year. The next season we'll play. There's nothing in jeopardy because of the ratings. If 22 million people tune in instead of 28 million people, not going to affect my life at all. So I'm just going to enjoy baseball.
Fox and CBS and all these companies don't put out those 10-year contract bids with the caveat in their rider going, we will broadcast in 4K from these many, but except if these teams make the World Series, then we're going to just send a guy with an iPhone. It's like, that's not the way it works, man.
Like, who cares? I don't know why everybody cares so much about the ratings. We've talked about it, too. I know it's something to talk about, but why do people care?
I don't know.
This is going to be the lowest rated World Series. Who gives a shit?
Okay, so what if it is? What if it is? Well, that means the teams suck. No, it just means they have fewer fans. It doesn't mean that they suck. Like, they're not the
Right.
Yankees. They're
And
not the
and
Dodgers. I
young
get it.
fans who want to get turned on to baseball aren't going to be turned off because it's not the
Yeah.
Yankees and the Dodgers. Compelling baseball is compelling baseball. Do you know what World Series I remember? The first World Series I watched that hooked me was the St. Louis Cardinals versus the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, there you
You
go.
know, the Kansas City Royals. Who cares about the
Mm-hmm.
Royals? Nobody. But that hooked me. You know, that was a year that hooked me. It wasn't the Mets Red Sox in 86, you know, and then Cardinals Twins in 87. Again, compelling. You know, Twins, a team that barely ever makes it. They've made 2 World Series. So, yeah, it's a bunch of
Yeah.
hullabaloo. I'm very, very happy with the way it shook out, and I very much look forward to it next week. Friday is going to be fun. I really
Well,
look forward to this
and
series.
that's what's crazy about it on Friday is that the Rangers, being the number 5 seed in the American League, get home field advantage. So there you go. I mean, whatever. It's just crazy. It's just crazy to me. All right, so as we're going to wrap up here, and really the last thing I wanted to talk about was that they did release the 10 finalists for the Ford C. Frick Award, which of course votes a writer or a broadcaster into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And this year you had Kruk and Kite both making it, which is really, really cool. And of course, John Miller's made it prior to them and was elected. So everyone's been joking on Twitter, and I'm sure you've seen it too. It's like, can they go in as a pair? Like, can we do this? Like, we really want to do this? Because the reality is that one gets voted in, right? And that's it. So out of the 10, it's like only one's going to make it. And it would be I wouldn't say very, but it would be slightly awkward if Kruk or Kipe gets it. I don't know. It's just a little strange because they're both like attached at the hip in this regard, you know. But if it happens, they're going to be happy for them. Hopefully, the other one could make it in the next few years. But I don't know. What did you have any thoughts about the nominees or Kruk and Kipe?
Well, from what I've heard is they've actually had discussions behind the scenes about putting them up as a pair in the future. So there's a part of me that hopes neither of them gets it this year so that they maybe think about doing that in the
Right.
future. And I'd be fine with that. I think they're deserving. I'm going to say an unpopular opinion here for a moment, but I think Kruko is winding down his career and
he
may
is.
want to look into stepping out of the booth in the next few years. I love the guy. I do. His passion is,
Yeah.
unmatched, and he's got great knowledge. He really, really does. But with all his medical problems and, and frankly, the game's starting to get a little different on him. I think it might be time, but that doesn't take away from the last 20-something years. So I do. I think Kruko and Kipe, if they go in, deserve to go together because neither of them is above the other one. I mean,
No.
you don't view it that way. I don't view it that way. No Giant fan views Kruk is better than Kipe or Kipe is better than Kruk. No, they're together. It's them.
Yep.
So for that reason, I wouldn't mind if they miss out this year and then they can get an exception. But if one of them makes it this year and the other one doesn't, that's kind of heartbreaking for them. You know what I mean?
That's the possibility that I don't want to see come to fruition. I could not agree more. If they have to go in alternate years, that's one thing. But if one makes it and the other one never does, then that's very strange because clearly I would agree with you, and I do think that most Giants fans would agree with you that the one of them is not better than the other in our eyes. They really are. They're completely unique individuals. They could not be more different in terms of their style and demeanor, but they are peanut butter and jelly, man. They work so well together and they're joined at the hip. And it would be really sad if one made it and the other one didn't. That would be a kind of a cool solution though, if they were able to get them both on the same ballot next year. I'm sure as one unit, but I'm sure some people would not like that. And maybe they wouldn't like that. Maybe they would be like, no, we're not one person, man. We're two people. But who knows? Anyway, I thought it was worth mentioning that they are getting the national recognition they deserve. Again, 10 finalists, so there's a 1 in 5 chance that one of those guys is going to go in. And so it's not extremely likely, but it could happen. Cool stuff.
Right. I have a hard time seeing them both get voted in when there's only 2 slots. Because there's probably, I don't have the list in front of me, but there's probably other deserving candidates on that list. So you don't want to screw somebody to fill 2 slots, which is why putting them together in 1 slot makes sense. because then you open up another slot for a deserving candidate as well. So there's all sorts of positives. But, they deserve it. I don't know how much longer they're going to go, and I'll miss them when they're done. I didn't start watching Kruk and Kuip until 2011. I did not get MLB TV until then. And now it's just a part of life. I literally, when I put on a Giants game in April and my wife hears Kruk and Kuip, she goes, "Oh, that's the sound. Now I know baseball's on."
That's what it is,
man. And that's the way, right? That's what it is. So I'm with you. I love them, and I always will.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for episode 292. It looks like we'll be coming back probably after the World Series. We'll talk about what's transpired with Bob Melvin in between. And then free agency opens up 5 days after the World Series ends. And so that'll be a point of discussion as well. We'll review the World Series, talk about whoever won it, and then look forward to the offseason and see which direction the Giants might go. We'll probably do a review of available free agents and maybe who the top targets might want to be for Farhan and company. But yeah, a lot to talk about as we're going to be entering the hot stove season in the off season. Eric, you got anything to talk about? Pimp?
No, not really. No, nothing to pimp right now. Giants chatter is just as quiet as we've been, and now I have dogs barking in the background. So that's all I got. I'm glad to be talking baseball again.
Yeah, he doesn't like Bob Melvin. Maybe that's what's going on there.
Apparently, that dog does not like Bob Melvin. I'm gonna go ask him. What Beethoven? What's
the
wrong
problem
with Bob Melvin?
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We do appreciate all of the listening power that you bring to us. Keeps our numbers up and keeps the possibility of advertisers and press access and all those things going. So we really do appreciate it. Anyway, for Eric, this is Chad signing off, and we'll see ya about 10 days or so, give or take. Until then, have a great week. A-boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.